The big classroom at the Galactic Military Academy was full of noise. Young soldiers from many different planets sat in their seats talking and laughing. Commander Vextral stood at the front of the room. He was tall and looked like a giant bug with green skin and many eyes. He was talking about war numbers and how good different alien armies were at fighting. The big screens showed lots of numbers, kill ratios they called them, how many enemies each soldier could defeat before dying. The reptile people called Saurians killed about 3 enemies for each of their soldiers who died. The warrior bugs called Mantox killed almost 6 enemies each. Even the peaceful blue aliens called Etherians could kill almost 3 enemies when they had to fight. Una sat in the back row of the classroom. She was small compared to all the big aliens around her. Her black hair was tied back, and she wore the same gray uniform as everyone else. She had been listening very carefully to all the numbers. She found it interesting how different alien races fought wars. Most of the other students were not really paying attention. Some were writing notes. Others looked bored and sleepy. The commander kept reading numbers from his tablet. Kill ratio this and combat effectiveness that. It was not very exciting for most students. Una looked around at her classmates. There was Glex, the stone person who looked like a walking rock. His people were very strong but slow. Near him sat Zara, who had tentacles instead of arms. Her species was very smart and could think many thoughts at once. In the middle rows were the Saurian students with their long necks and sharp teeth. They came from a planet where everything tried to eat everything else. The human students were scattered around the room. There were only 12 humans in the whole academy. Most aliens still thought Earth was not very important. Humans had only recently joined the galactic community. Many aliens saw them as primitive and weak. Commander Vextral kept talking about battle statistics. His voice was buzzing and boring. He showed charts about how the different alien armies worked. Some fought in big groups. Others used advanced technology. The hive mind species, like the Vorthax, fought as one giant brain controlling millions of bodies. Then the commander stopped talking and looked around the room. His compound eyes blinked in different patterns. This meant he was thinking, or maybe confused about something. He asked if anyone had questions about the combat analysis he had just presented. The room became very quiet. Students stopped their side conversations. Some looked at their notes. Others just stared at the ceiling or out the windows at the stars. Nobody seemed to want to ask questions about the boring military statistics. Una raised her hand slowly. Her movement caught the attention of several nearby aliens. When she spoke, her voice was clear and carried across the silent room. "What is the kill ratio for a single Earth Marine?" she asked. The question hung in the air like a bomb waiting to explode. All conversations stopped completely. Every alien student in the room turned to look at the small human girl. Some looked amused. Others seemed confused. Why would anyone care about Earth military statistics? Commander Vextral blinked his many eyes rapidly. This was a sign that he was surprised or confused. His mandibles clicked together as he thought about the question. Earth was such a new member of the galactic community that most military databases barely had any information about human forces. "I'm not sure we have that information available," he said slowly. His voice sounded uncertain. "Earth military forces are quite new to our records." But Una did not give up. She leaned forward in her seat, and her dark eyes stayed focused on the commander. "Could you please look it up?" she asked politely. "I am really curious how my people compare to everyone else here." The commander looked down at his tablet. His claws made clicking sounds as he searched through the military database. The room had become completely silent now. Even the usually chatty Zephyrian twins were paying attention. Other human students, including Una roommate Minji, were also looking interested. Several minutes passed as the commander searched through files. His expression began to change. His mandibles started clicking faster, which meant he was getting nervous or upset. He made small, worried sounds as he read whatever was on his screen. "There seems to be some kind of error in the database," he said quietly. His voice had lost all its normal confidence. "What kind of error?" asked Thorne. He was a big furry alien from a planet of warriors. He had scars across his face from many battles. The commander looked up from his tablet. His voice was barely loud enough to hear. According to this data, the average kill ratio for a human marine is 847 to 1. Complete silence filled the huge classroom. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Every single eye in the room was now looking at the handful of human. Students scattered throughout the seats. The number seemed impossible. No species had kill ratios that high. Una smiled slightly. The expression somehow looked both innocent and terrifying at the same time. "That sounds about right," she said in a calm voice. "Did you want to know about our special forces too?" The alien students began to look scared. Some moved away from the human students. Others whispered to each other in their own languages. The peaceful Etherian students started glowing brighter, which happened when they were afraid. Even the warrior Mantox looked nervous. Commander Vextrol stared at his tablet. He kept reading and rereading the same information. His hands were shaking slightly. Around the room, other instructors had started to gather. They could tell something unusual was happening in what was normally a very boring statistics class. "But that cannot be right," said Grontok. He was a massive stone creature from a planet where everything was made of rock. "No species has kill ratios that high. The database must be broken or corrupted somehow." Una shrugged her shoulders. Her expression stayed calm and relaxed. "Maybe. You should check the detailed battle reports instead of just the summary statistics," she suggested. The commander began typing frantically on his tablet. He pulled up detailed combat records from multiple databases. He cross-referenced information from different sources. With each new search, his expression became more worried and frightened. The Terran-Zephyr border conflict he read out loud. His voice was shaking now. Human casualties, 43 Marines. Enemy casualties, 36,412. Every alien student in the room gasped at the same time. The Zephyrians were known throughout the galaxy as fierce warriors. Their crystal bodies were almost impossible to hurt with normal weapons. How could 43 humans kill over 36,000 of them? "That is impossible," whispered Valana. Her tentacles were moving in agitated patterns. "The Zephyrians are enhanced super soldiers." Minji raised her hand slowly. "Commander, could you check the siege of Korval Station? I think my older brother Doyen served in that battle." More clicking sounds came from the commander tablet. His voice was now barely audible. "Human forces, 1 platoon, 28 Marines. Korval Station defenders estimated 12,000 mixed-species coalition forces." He paused and his mandibles chattered nervously. "Human casualties, 0. Enemy. Casualties total station population, eliminated." The classroom erupted into complete chaos. Commander Vextrol stared at his tablet screen. His compound eyes reflected the blue glow from the display. The silence in the big classroom stretched on and on. Around the room, alien students looked at each other with confusion and fear. Some were laughing nervously. Others looked like they did not believe what they had just heard. "This has to be a mistake," rumbled Grontok. "He was a massive being made of living stone from the granite worlds. No species has kill ratios that high. The military database must be corrupted or hacked somehow." Una sat calmly in her seat. Her expression had not changed at all. "Maybe you should check the historical battle records instead of just the summary statistics," she said quietly. The commander began typing frantically on his interface tablet. He pulled up detailed combat reports from multiple military archives. He cross-referenced information from different galactic databases. With each new search, His expression grew more disturbed and frightened. Other instructors had begun gathering around his teaching podium. They were drawn by the unusual commotion in what was typically a very boring statistics class. The Terran-Zephyr border conflict, he read aloud again. His voice was shaking slightly now. Human casualty count 43 Marines killed or wounded. Enemy casualty count 36,412, confirmed dead. A collective gasp went up from all the alien students. The Zephyrians were known throughout the galaxy as some of the fiercest warriors alive. Their crystalline bodies were nearly impossible to damage with most conventional weapons. They had been fighting wars for thousands of years. "That is completely impossible," whispered Valana. Her tentacles were writhing with nervous energy. "The Zephyrians are third-generation enhanced super warriors. They have been genetically modified for combat." Minji slowly raised her hand. She was Yuna Korean roommate and one of the quieter human students. "Commander, could you please check the siege of Corval Station? I believe my older brother Doyen served there with his unit." More clicking sounds came from the commander claws on his datapad. His voice was now barely audible to anyone in the room. Human forces deployed one platoon consisting of 28 Marines total. Corval Station defending forces estimated at 12,000 mixed-species coalition troops. He paused, and his mandibles began chattering rapidly. Human military casualties 0 killed, 0 wounded. Enemy casualties complete elimination of all station personnel and defenders. The room erupted into complete chaos and pandemonium. Alien students were shouting questions and demands for explanations. Some were standing up from their seats and backing away from the human students. The peaceful Etherian delegates were huddled together in a corner. Their normally bright blue auras were flickering with obvious fear and distress. Even the warrior-bred Mantok students looked deeply unsettled. These were aliens who had been genetically designed for combat from birth. They had 4 arms, each capable of lifting a ground vehicle. Yet they were looking at the small human students with something approaching terror. "What about the Titan's Gate incident?" called out Junho. He was another human cadet who rarely spoke during classes. He was quiet and studious, but now his voice carried clearly across the noisy room. The commander's hands were visibly shaking as he accessed the military files. "Human Expeditionary Force 1 Company, numbering 112 Marines total. Opposition Forces Vorthak Hive Fleet, estimated strength 75,000 combat drones plus support vessels and logistics." His voice cracked completely. "Human casualties 9, wounded 0 killed. Vorthak casualties complete fleet destruction with no survivors." The alien students had gone completely silent again. Some were backing away from the human students as if they had suddenly become dangerous wild animals. Others were staring with the kind of fascination people show when watching something both terrifying and amazing. The massive Ursinian cadet had extended his claws unconsciously. This was a defensive response his species showed when they sensed extreme danger. Several other species were displaying similar involuntary fear reactions. Yuna stood up slowly from her seat. Her movement caused several nearby aliens to actually flinch and move away. "You are starting to understand," she said quietly. Her voice was calm, but somehow menacing. "We do not fight wars the way you do. We do not have the luxury of overwhelming numbers or superior alien technology." She looked around the room at all the frightened faces staring at her. "When humans fight, we fight to win completely and totally, or we die trying. There is no middle ground for us." The commander had gone pale. His usual greenish skin color was fading to a sickly yellow shade. The database shows over 300 separate military conflicts involving human forces. In every single engagement, regardless of the odds against them, the human kill ratio never drops below 200 enemies killed for each human casualty. "Now, you are starting to get it," Yuna said with that same disturbing smile. "And those statistics are just for our regular Marines. You asked about special forces earlier." The entire room held its breath, waiting for her response. My species learned warfare in the harshest school imaginable, she continued. We fought each other for thousands of years on Earth. We developed tactics and strategies that none of your species can understand or counter effectively. She walked slowly toward the front of the classroom. Several aliens moved out of her path, even though she was much smaller than most of them. We learned that sometimes the only way to ensure lasting peace is to make war so terrible and complete that no one wants to fight you ever again. Minji stood up to join her roommate. When humans go to war, we do not fight for territory or resources or political objectives, she said. We fight to completely eliminate threats to our people and our way of life. Siak, another human student, also stood up. We do not take prisoners unless they surrender immediately and completely. We do not negotiate with enemies during combat. We do not show mercy to those who threaten innocent people. The commander was scrolling through more and more battle reports. His expression kept getting worse as he read. Every single conflict shows the same pattern, he said in amazement. Humans suffer minimal casualties while enemy forces are completely destroyed. That is because we do not fight battles, Junho said quietly. When humans decide that someone needs to die, we simply kill them as efficiently as possible. We do not play games or follow traditional rules of warfare. The alien students were now completely terrified. Some were trying to contact their home worlds on personal communicators. Others were demanding to be transferred to different classes or even different academies. Commander Vextral looked up from his tablet one final time. There is something else in these records, he said. Something that makes even less sense than the kill ratios. What is it? Asked Admiral Zarseth. He had arrived during the commotion, and his Etherean aura was flickering with concern. According to every report I have read, humans never start these conflicts. They are always responding to attacks or threats against civilian populations. The commander paused. It appears that humans only become this deadly when they are protecting something or someone they care about. Yuna nodded slowly. Now you understand the most important thing about my species. We are not conquerors or aggressors. We are guardians and protectors, but when something threatens what we protect... She did not finish the sentence. She did not need to. Every alien in the room now understood exactly what humans were capable of when motivated to fight. The question that had started this whole discussion suddenly seemed much more ominous. What is the kill ratio for a single Earth Marine was not just a request for statistics. It was a warning about what happened to anyone foolish enough to threaten humanity or its allies. 3 days had passed since Yuna question had turned the entire military academy upside down. Word about the human kill ratios had spread throughout the whole space station. Everywhere the human cadets went, they found themselves either completely avoided or stared at with mixtures of fear and fascination. Yuna sat alone in the Academy vast library reading through historical military texts. The library was huge, with floating book displays and holographic reading areas. Most alien students gave her a wide space now when they saw her coming. She did not mind the isolation. It gave her time to study and think. She was deep in reading about ancient battle tactics when someone approached her table. It was Kestrel, a reptilian saurian whose green scales bore the ritual scars of a warrior caste. Unlike most other alien students who now avoided humans completely, Kestrel seemed genuinely curious rather than afraid. "I have been researching your species," he said as he settled his large frame into the chair across from her. His voice was deep and raspy like all saurians. "The more I read about humans, the less I understand how you work." Yuna looked up from her reading tablet. She studied the sincere expression on the saurian, elongated reptilian face. "What specifically confuses you about humans?" she asked. "Everything," Kestrel admitted honestly. "My people are bred specifically for combat from birth. We have natural weapons like claws and fangs. We have enhanced reflexes and armor like scales. The Mantox have 4 arms and can lift ground vehicles over their heads. The Vorthak fight with unified hive minds." He leaned forward with obvious curiosity. What advantage do humans actually possess that makes you so deadly in combat? Before Yuna could answer her roommate, Minji approached their study table. She was accompanied by Junho and another human cadet named Seok. The human students had been spending more time together lately. They found comfort in each other's company as the rest of the academy treated them like dangerous wild animals. "Do you mind if we join this conversation?" Minji asked politely. She set down her study materials on the table. "I could not help but overhear the question about human advantages." Kestrel nodded eagerly. "Please join us. I am trying to understand how your species became so effective at warfare despite seeming so physically weak." Sok laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. "You want to know what makes humans dangerous in combat? We are persistence hunters." The Saurian head tilted in obvious confusion. "I am not familiar with that term. What does persistence hunting mean?" On Earth, Yuna explained patiently humans evolved as endurance predators. We could not run as fast as our prey animals. We could not overpower them with raw physical strength. We could not track them with superior senses like smell or hearing. Minji continued the explanation. "So instead, we learned to chase wounded prey animals for days or even weeks if necessary. We would never let them rest or recover from their injuries. Eventually, the animal would simply lie down and wait to die because running was no longer possible. But warfare is not the same as hunting animals," Kestrel protested. Junho smiled grimly. "Is it not exactly the same thing? When humans go to war, we do not just fight individual battles. We hunt our enemies across entire star systems for as long as it takes. We study enemy behavior patterns," Seok added. "We learn their weaknesses and fears. We adapt our tactics constantly. We never give up and never surrender and never stop coming after our targets." "That Zephyr conflict the commander mentioned yesterday," Minji said. "It was not 43 Marines fighting 36,000 soldiers in one single battle. It was 43 Marines who spent 8 months systematically hunting down and eliminating every enemy combatant across 17 different worlds." Yuna nodded. "They turned warfare into a hunting expedition. Each enemy soldier became individual, prey to be tracked and killed." Kextrel's scales had taken on a slightly paler shade of green. "But surely your casualty rates must be much higher in prolonged engagements like that." Yuna shook her head firmly. "That is where you misunderstand how humans think about warfare. When we commit to a fight, we do not plan for acceptable losses. We plan for total victory with minimal human casualties." She leaned forward and her voice dropped to barely above a whisper. "Every human Marine is trained to be a complete weapons system. They can operate independently for extended periods in any environment. A single Marine carries enough firepower to level an entire city block," Minji added. "They are trained in dozens of different combat disciplines. They can survive in any environment, from frozen worlds to toxic atmospheres. But more importantly, Junho said they are trained to think like predators rather than soldiers." When a human Marine enters any battlefield, Seok explained they are not there to hold territory or achieve military objectives. They are there to hunt and kill every enemy combatant they can possibly find. "It is not personal or emotional," Yuna said calmly. "It is just what we do naturally. Most alien species fight to defeat their enemies or force them to surrender. Humans fight to ensure our enemies can never threaten anyone ever again." The Saurian warrior was quiet for several long minutes. He seemed to be processing all this new information about human nature and military doctrine. Finally, he spoke in a voice barely above a whisper. "No wonder the entire galaxy has started to fear your species. You have turned warfare into a form of art." Yuna smiled, but the expression was cold and predatory rather than friendly. "And we have not even told you about what happens when someone threatens our civilian populations." "What do you mean?" Kestrel asked, though he seemed afraid to hear the answer. Minji leaned back in her chair. When humans fight to protect territory or resources, we are efficient and deadly. But when someone threatens our families and innocent people, we become something much worse. We become absolutely merciless, Junho said quietly. There are no rules of engagement when human civilians are threatened. There are no prisoners taken. There are no mercy negotiations. Seok nodded grimly. Enemy combatants who threaten human civilians do not get quick, clean deaths. They get hunted, down slowly and made to suffer before they die. The entire enemy species gets marked for extinction, Yuna said matter-of-factly. We do not just eliminate the immediate threat. We eliminate the entire culture that produced that threat so it can never happen again. Kestrel was staring at the human students with something approaching horror. You would commit genocide over civilian attacks, not genocide, Yuna corrected. Pest, control. When a species proves it will target innocent people, they stop being people in human minds. They become dangerous animals that need to be put down permanently. The Saurian warrior stood up abruptly from the table. His scales were now almost white with fear. I think I understand now why the Academy has become so quiet around you humans. He backed away from their study table slowly. You are not just warriors or soldiers. You are apex predators who have learned to use technology and tactics. Yuna smiled again. Now you are starting to understand what my species really is. We are not the most advanced or the strongest or the fastest, but we are absolutely the most dangerous when motivated to protect something we care about. Kestrel nodded and continued backing toward the library exit. Thank you for explaining. I think I need to report this conversation to my superiors immediately. As the Saurian left the library, the human students looked at each other knowingly. Word would spread even faster now about what humans were truly capable of in warfare. The galaxy was beginning to understand that Earth had not joined the galactic community as just another member species. Humanity had arrived as the apex predator, species that every other race should be very careful not to provoke or threaten. The Academy main briefing hall was packed beyond its normal capacity. Word about the human kill ratios had spread throughout the entire Galactic Defense Force network. Now representatives from dozens of different species had arrived to witness what was being called an educational demonstration. Admiral Zarseth had called for a full review of human military capabilities. Yuna and her fellow human cadets sat in the front row of the massive auditorium. They suddenly found themselves the center of attention from beings who had previously dismissed Earth as just another insignificant backwater world. The atmosphere in the room was thick with tension. Many of the alien representatives looked clearly uncomfortable about what they might learn today. We have gathered here today, Admiral Zarseth began. His melodic Etherian voice resonated through the hall with natural authority. We want to better understand our newest galactic allies and the true nature of human military doctrine. Commander Vextral has prepared a comprehensive analysis based on 3 months of intensive research. The insectoid commander approached the main podium with obvious reluctance and nervousness. His usual confidence had been completely replaced by an anxious energy that was apparent to everyone in the room. The massive holographic displays came to life, showing detailed star charts and battle statistics. After extensive review of human military engagements, he began. His voice was steadier than anyone expected given his obvious fear. We have identified several distinct patterns that distinguish Terran warfare from all other known military doctrines in the galaxy. The first hologram showed a peaceful farming world. Its green surface was dotted with small agricultural settlements and livestock areas. This is Colony Delta 7, he explained. It was a mixed-species agricultural world that was attacked by raiders from the notorious Crimson Fleet pirates. The image shifted to show a single small spacecraft approaching the planet. The response from nearby human forces was one patrol vessel, with a crew of exactly 12 Marines. The unit was commanded by Sergeant Hayok. Murmurs of complete disbelief rippled through the audience of alien representatives. The Crimson Fleet was notorious throughout the entire galaxy. They numbered in the thousands with heavily armed warships and battle-hardened crews who had been raiding for decades. The pirate fleet consisted of 47 vessels with an estimated total crew of 8,000 raiders, the commander continued, reading from his notes. They had already begun large-scale landing operations when the single human vessel arrived in the system. The hologram now showed tactical displays of the entire engagement from start to finish. Rather than request backup forces or attempt diplomatic negotiations, Sergeant HFY's team immediately went on the full offensive. They used their ship sensors to map every single pirate vessel in the fleet. Yuna noticed that several alien representatives had begun taking frantic notes. Others looked increasingly disturbed and frightened as the presentation continued with more details. The engagement lasted exactly 4 days, Commander Vextral reported. The human team systematically destroyed every pirate vessel one by one. They eliminated all ground forces completely and rescued every single colonist without exception. He paused and took a deep breath. Total human casualties, 1 minor injury from a fall during a boarding action. Total pirate casualties, complete fleet destruction, with absolutely no survivors anywhere. The silence in the room was absolutely deafening. Finally, a tall, crystalline, Zephyrian delegate spoke up in a shaking voice. "How is this even remotely possible? 12 soldiers against 8,000 experienced pirates." Before the commander could attempt an answer, Minji stood up from her seat. "May I please explain, sir?" she asked politely. When Admiral Zarseth nodded his approval, she continued confidently. "The pirates made the same mistake that most species make when fighting humans. They assumed we think and fight like they do." She moved confidently to the holographic display and pointed at the tactical readout. Most galactic species fight to achieve specific military objectives, capture territory or disable enemy forces or force negotiated surrenders. Humans fight to eliminate threats permanently and completely. The display shifted to show detailed ship schematics and battle plans. When Sergeant HFY's team analyzed the tactical situation, they did not see a rescue mission with specific objectives. They saw a hunting operation with 47 targets that needed to be eliminated as efficiently as possible. HFY joined her at the display area. The pirates spread their forces across multiple landing sites, thinking it would make them much harder to defeat. For most military forces in the galaxy, this would be absolutely true. For humans, it just meant their prey had separated into smaller, more manageable hunting groups. Each Marine carried enough concentrated firepower to destroy a capital-class starship, Junho added from his seat. But more importantly, they carried the knowledge and training to use whatever resources they found on the battlefield as additional weapons. A massive, 4-armed Mantok warrior leaned forward in his seat. "But what about the overwhelming numbers advantage? How do 12 soldiers coordinate effectively against thousands of enemies?" Yuna smiled that disturbing smile again. "That is exactly what you do not understand about human military thinking. We do not coordinate against superior numbers. We make superior numbers completely irrelevant to the outcome." She gestured toward the tactical display showing the battle progression. Those 8,000 pirates were thinking and acting like a traditional military force. They had command structures, and supply lines and communication networks and strategic objectives to achieve. "Humans do not attack military forces as organized units," she explained. "We attack the individual people that make up those forces one at a time." Each Marine became an independent hunter, Minji explained further. They did not fight the pirate fleet as a single entity. They hunted 8,000 separate individual targets, one by one until none remained alive. The Admiral Etherian aura had dimmed considerably with worry, and if some of those pirates had managed to escape the system, the human cadets exchanged knowing glances with each other. Finally, Yuna answered in a voice that was cold and completely matter-of-fact. Then those Marines would have followed the survivors across the entire galaxy, no matter how long it took them. She looked directly at the Admiral. Humans do not leave active threats alive to regroup and attack innocent people later. We finish what others start. A new voice spoke clearly, from the back of the hall, causing everyone to turn around. That assessment is completely correct. An older human in military dress uniform was walking confidently down the center aisle. The room fell into complete silence as the man approached the front area. He was average height and unremarkable in appearance, except for the predatory way he moved and the complete confidence in his bearing. "Captain HFY Terran Marine Corps," he announced. "I personally commanded that operation against the Crimson Fleet pirates." The room remained silent as the man took position near the front of the auditorium. "You want to understand human warfare?" he asked while looking around at all the assembled alien representatives. "It is actually quite simple to explain. When you threaten innocent people that we have sworn to protect, you automatically become prey, animals. And humans are exceptionally good at hunting prey animals to complete extinction." The alien representatives were now looking genuinely terrified of the calm human officer standing before them. Some were trying to move their seats further, away from the front of the room. Captain HFY's presence had completely transformed the atmosphere in the briefing hall. What had started as academic curiosity about human military statistics had become something approaching genuine terror. The alien representatives were no longer just listening to numbers and second-hand battle reports. They were now facing one of the actual humans who had created those terrifying statistics. Admiral Zarseth. Luminous Etherian form was flickering with obvious uncertainty and growing concern. "Captain, we appreciate your valuable perspective on these matters, but I believe our colleagues would benefit much more from understanding the broader implications of human military doctrine." The human officer nodded calmly and politely. "Of course, Admiral. Perhaps a practical demonstration would be more educational than continued theoretical discussion." Worried murmurs rippled quickly through the audience of alien representatives. Several of the smaller, more fragile species shifted nervously in their seats. Others were looking toward the exit doors as if planning escape routes. Nothing dangerous, of course, Captain HFY assured them, though his calm smile did absolutely nothing to ease their growing concerns. "Commander Vextral, could you please display the current security status of this space station?" The insectoid commander compound eyes blinked rapidly as he accessed the station computer systems. The Galactic Academy station maintains completely standard defensive protocols. We have automated defense turrets and shielded sectors and multiple security checkpoints throughout the facility. We also maintain a garrison of 300 mixed species security personnel. "Excellent," the captain said approvingly. "Now, purely as an educational exercise, I would like to show you exactly how a human military unit would approach this station if it were designated as a hostile target." Before anyone could object or ask questions, Captain HFY activated a small device from his uniform pocket. The room holographic displays suddenly changed completely. They now showed detailed technical schematics of the entire space station. These were classified blueprints that should not have been accessible to anyone, without the highest possible security clearances. "First phase information gathering," he explained casually. He acted as if he had not just demonstrated a massive security breach. "These complete schematics were obtained by my team during the 47 minutes I have been aboard this station." The alien representatives were now openly frightened and disturbed. Admiral Zarseth aura had shifted to a deep red color, indicating extreme agitation and alarm. "Captain, how did you possibly access classified station blueprints and security systems?" "Your security systems are designed to prevent unauthorized access by known threat vectors," Captain HFY replied matter-of-factly. "But humans are exceptionally good at becoming authorized users through social engineering." He gestured casually toward the holographic display. "My communications officer simply asked one of your maintenance technicians for help with a supposed navigation system malfunction. Your people are remarkably helpful and trusting when approached politely by someone wearing the right uniform." The display shifted to show detailed movement patterns throughout the entire station. Phase 2. Comprehensive Reconnaissance. Over the past 3 days, while your attention was focused on these briefings, my team has been systematically mapping every corridor and identifying every security checkpoint. Yuna watched the alien representatives with growing interest. She could see the exact moment when each different species began to truly understand the real implications of what they were witnessing. The humans had not just been attending normal academy classes. They had been conducting a complete military intelligence operation. We have cataloged every defensive system and profiled every single personnel member on the station, Captain Hayok continued. The display highlighted specific locations throughout the massive facility. Phase 3 asset identification and targeting. Red markers appeared on critical areas. Your primary computer cores and life support systems and artificial gravity generators and communications arrays and weapons control centers. All mapped and analyzed and prepared for immediate neutralization if it becomes necessary. Commander. Vextral mandibles were chattering uncontrollably with fear. This should be completely impossible. Our advanced security protocols should have detected any reconnaissance activity. Captain Hayek's expression remained pleasant and conversational. Your security systems are designed to catch traditional spies and saboteurs. You are looking for beings trying to hide or break in or steal information secretly. He smiled that predatory human smile. You are not prepared for a species that conducts reconnaissance by being polite and helpful and completely open about their presence on your station. He activated another display showing detailed personnel profiles of station staff. Phase 4. Human Resources Analysis and Threat Assessment. We know which of your security personnel are combat veterans and which are inexperienced. More profiles appeared on screen. We know which ones have families they would want to protect and which would fight to the death regardless of consequences. We know their duty shift schedules and their preferred routes through the station and even their recreational activities during off hours. The four-armed Mantok warrior who had been asking questions earlier raised one of his muscular limbs. Are you actually saying that if humans decided to take control of this station, you could accomplish it? Oh, we already have, Captain Hai. 2 weeks had passed since Captain Hyok's demonstration, and the Galactic Academy Station felt like a completely different place. The human cadets were no longer treated as curiosities or primitive newcomers. Instead, they found themselves approached with the kind of careful respect usually reserved for dangerous predators. Yuna sat in the Academy's observation deck, looking out at the star field beyond, when Admiral Zarseth approached. His luminous aura had returned to its normal golden hue, though it flickered occasionally with residual anxiety. "May I join you?" he asked, his melodic voice more subdued than usual. Yuna nodded, gesturing to the empty chair beside her. "Of course, Admiral. Is there something you wanted to discuss?" The Etherian settled into the chair, his translucent form shimmering slightly in the starlight. "I've been reviewing the reports from your homeworld, trying to understand your species better. The more I learn, the more questions I have." "What kind of questions?" "Your planet's history is filled with warfare, yet you also created incredible art, music, literature. You developed technologies for healing alongside weapons for destruction. You form deep emotional bonds with other species, yet you're capable of eliminating threats with complete clinical detachment." The Admiral paused, his aura shifting to a confused purple. How can one species contain such contradictions? Yuna was quiet for a moment, considering how to answer. Finally, she spoke. "I think you're misunderstanding what humans are, Admiral. You keep thinking of us as either peaceful or warlike, but that's not how it works." She turned to face him directly. "Humans are protective. Everything we do, from our art to our warfare, comes from that basic drive. We create beautiful things because we want to preserve beauty in the universe. We form emotional bonds because we want to protect the beings we care about. And when something threatens what we protect, you become hunters," the Admiral finished, quietly. "Exactly. It's not that we enjoy killing or seek out conflict. It's that we're willing to become monsters to protect what we love. Yuna's voice was matter-of-fact, as if she were discussing the weather. Most species fight to defeat their enemies. Humans fight to ensure our enemies can never threaten anyone again. Admiral Zarseth was silent for several minutes, processing this explanation. When he spoke again, his voice was thoughtful. Your Captain Hyok could have killed everyone on this station, couldn't he? Probably, Yuna admitted. But why would he? You're not threatening anything humans protect. You're potential allies, potential friends. There's no reason to hurt you. And if we became enemies? Yuna's smile was sad rather than threatening. Then you'd become extinct, Admiral. Not because we hate you, but because we couldn't allow the threat to continue existing. The observation deck's doors opened, and Minji entered with several other human cadets. They had taken to gathering here in the evenings, finding comfort in each other's company as they adjusted to their new status within the academy. How are the other cadets treating you? Admiral Zarseth asked as the humans settled into nearby chairs. Junho laughed, but there was no bitterness in it. Better than before, actually. Before Captain Hyok's demonstration, most of them either ignored us or thought we were primitive. Now they're genuinely interested in understanding us. Even Kextor has been asking us to train with him, Sayok added. He wants to understand human combat techniques. Minji nodded. The Saurians have a saying, know your allies as well as your enemies. I think they're starting to realize we could be very valuable allies, or very dangerous enemies, Yuna added quietly. Admiral Zarseth's aura shifted to a contemplative blue. I've been in communication with the Galactic Council. They want to establish formal military cooperation agreements with Earth. That's probably wise, Yuna said. Humans work much better as allies than as adversaries. But they're also concerned, the Admiral continued. Your species' capabilities are unlike anything we've encountered. Some council members are frightened. The human cadets exchanged glances. Finally, Minji spoke. Admiral, can I ask you something? Of course. Before you knew about our military capabilities, how did you see humans? The Etherian considered the question. As young, inexperienced, but promising, perhaps a bit crude by galactic standards, but with potential. And now, he paused, his aura flickering. Now I see a species that could conquer the entire galaxy if they chose to. Yuna shook her head. That's where you're wrong, Admiral. Humans don't want to conquer anything. We want to protect everything. There's a difference. She stood up, moving to the observation deck's large viewport. Look out there. All those stars, all those worlds, all those species trying to build lives and create meaning in the universe. That's what humans want to protect. From what? Admiral Zarseth asked. From whatever threatens it, Junho replied. Pirates, invaders, tyrants, diseases, disasters, extinction events. Humans don't want to rule the galaxy. We want to be its guardians. The Admiral was quiet for a long time, his aura cycling through various colors as he processed their words. Finally, he spoke. Perhaps that's what frightens the Council most of all. Not that you might conquer us, but that you might protect us, whether we want it or not. Yuna turned back to face him, her expression serious. Admiral, if humanity ever decides that the galaxy needs protection from itself, your opinion won't matter, but we're a long way from that point. For now, we're content to be allies and friends, and if someone threatens your friends... Her smile returned, cold and predatory. Then they'll discover why the class went silent when I asked about kill ratios. As if summoned by her words, the observation deck's communication system activated. Commander Vextal's voice filled the room, urgent and frightened. All cadets to emergency stations. We're receiving distress calls from the Outer Rim. Unknown hostile forces are attacking civilian populations across 17 systems. The human cadets were already moving toward the exit when Admiral Zarseth called after them. "Where are you? Going?" Yuna paused at the doorway, looking back with eyes that suddenly seemed much older than her years. To show the galaxy what happens when someone threatens what humans protect. As the human cadets disappeared into the corridor, Admiral Zarseth found himself alone in the observation deck, staring out at the stars and wondering if the galaxy was about to witness the birth of its most terrifying protectors. The hunt was about to begin.